Okay, calm down.
Back to your powerful words. Let's take a look at another censored piece of your speech, and then again we'll play the longer clip for context. But this is not surprising at all that it got censored.
Palestinians were systematically raping Jewish doctors, patients, and other captives with hot metal rods, jagged and electrified sticks, and fire extinguishers, sometimes raping them to death, as happened with Dr. Adnan al-Bursh and others.
But it's true.
Right, I know, yeah, it's
Again,
true.
yeah.
Which is why, of course, they can't have you say it. We've talked about this a lot on the show, how, you know, God forbid anyone who talks about the mass rape, I put that in quotes, the October 7th mass rape, it would be one thing if they talked about that and then also talked about the documented rape of Palestinians. Like, I could think that they were gullible as opposed to outright lying, but they are outright lying because there's no way that Jake Tapper and Dana Bash don't know about the rape, because it's not covered by the New York Times. And, in other words, it's not just like Electronic Intifada or Mondo Weiss or the Gray Zone. It's covered by now the New York Times. It's covered by like all Israeli media. And as everyone knows who pays attention to this, you have a Knesset member saying it's legitimate. It's not denied by Israel. So anyone who claims to talk about anyone who claims to care about sexual violence, who ignores that, obviously just could not care less about it.
Yeah, they all kind of went on this whole media blitz of believe Israeli women, etc., except but don't believe Palestinian women, don't believe Palestinian men,
right.
Don't even believe Israeli rapists who admit to raping,
right.
Don't believe it.
Israelis protesting because they're angry at Israeli police for detaining Israeli soldiers for rape.
I think that's kind of an unprecedented thing in history. I don't think anybody has ever rioted or protested because they felt they had the right to systematically rape other people.
Yeah, it truly is. I mean, it's almost like if I heard about it in a script, I would say it's like over the top.
Yeah.
Like if it was in a screenplay, right?
It's
like
hard to imagine.
No one will believe that. That's too much. Yeah. But it is. Yeah. So let's take a look at this, because this is a very effective part of your speech where you're basically just calling out the stunning hypocrisy and double standards. So let's take a look at the clip that this comes from.
It is clear to me that we are not here to debate whether Israel is an apartheid or genocidal state. This debate is ultimately about the worth of Palestinian lives. It's about the worth of our schools, our research centers, our books, our art. It's about the worth of the homes we worked all our lives to build and which contain memories of generations. It's about the worth of our humanity and our agency, of our bodies and our ambitions. Because if the roles were reversed, if Palestinians had spent the last 8 decades stealing Jewish homes, expelling, oppressing, imprisoning, poisoning, torturing, killing, raping them, if Palestinians had killed an estimated 300,000 Jews in 1 year, targeted their journalists, their thinkers, their healthcare workers, their athletes, their artists, bombed every Israeli hospital, university, library, museum, cultural center, synagogue, and simultaneously set up an observation platform where citizens came to watch their slaughter as if a tourist attraction. If Palestinians had corralled them by the hundreds of thousands into flimsy tents, bombed them in so-called safe zones, burned them alive, cut off their food and water and medicine, if Palestinians made their children wander barefoot with empty pots, made them gather the flesh of their parents into plastic bags, bury their siblings, their cousins, their friends, made them sneak out from their tents at night to sleep on their parents' graves, made them pray for death, just to join their families and not be alone in this terrible world. If we terrorize them so utterly that their children lose their hair, lose their memory, lose their minds. And made those as young as 4 and 5 die of heart attacks. If we mercilessly force their NICU babies to die, alone in hospital beds, crying until they could cry no more, died and decomposed in the same spot. If Palestinians used wheat flour, a truck, to lure starving Jews, then opened fire on them as they gathered to collect the day's bread. If Palestinians finally allowed a food delivery into a shelter with hungry Jews, then set fire to the entire shelter and aid truck before anyone could taste a bite of the food. If a Palestinian sniper bragged about blowing out 42 Jewish kneecaps in one day, as one Israeli soldier did in 2019, if a Palestinian admitted to CNN that he ran over hundreds of Jews with his tank, their squished flesh lingering in the tank treads, if Palestinians were systematically raping Jewish doctors, patients, and other captives with hot metal rods, jagged and electrified sticks, and fire extinguishers, sometimes raping them to death, as happened with Dr. Adnan al-Bursh and others. If Jewish women were forced to give birth in filth, get C-sections or leg amputations without anesthesia, if we destroyed their children, then decorated our tanks with their toys, if we killed or displaced their women, then posed in their lingerie, if the world were watching the live-streamed systematic annihilation of Jews in real time, there would be no debating whether that constituted terrorism or genocide.
This really does, to me, like bring out, it's such a moral line in the sand, because if you see that and hear about that, I guess I'm saying this as a Jew, but like to my fellow Jews, if you hear that or see that and think that, well, that has to happen, as opposed to, we can't do that. How can we possibly do that to other people when that kind of stuff was done to us? It's like I just think have no soul. And also, I think you probably would have been a Nazi if you could have been during that time,
Well,
or a Nazi sympathizer.
I mean, that's the behavior.
Yeah.
That's the behavior they're exhibiting.